Okay, so you've been inspired to take your drone game to the next level and make a little bit of money on the side with your drone. Well, you've come to the right video. Today we're going to talk about stock footage, videography, and all the different things that there are to consider. For example, what type of content to record, what type of platforms to choose and what to look for in a platform, the editing workflow that you need to come up with to be efficient, and also some legal stuff that you need to be aware of before you start uploading anything. And finally, at the end of the video, I'll show you some of the clips that sell really well for me, so you get a better idea of like what type of content to record. So if you want to learn more about stock footage videography with drones, let's take a look. Alright, so in order to make money with stock footage videography, you obviously need to start recording some content. So let's talk a little bit about what type of content you want to be recording. So if you read a little bit about this whole topic, then one thing that you'll see over and over again is high quality. So you do want to record high quality content, and that's not just in terms of technical specs. So you do want it to be at least 1080p. Ideally, you want to be able to shoot some 4K footage just to have it a little bit more future proof, and also 4K footage sells at a higher price tag than 1080p footage. And also once you upload a 4K clip, it can be sold as 1080p and 4K. So that gives you more exposure to different customer ranges. So those are the technical specs. But in terms of actual content, you do want to end up with a bunch of 6 to 20 second long videos that you can imagine yourself being used in any type of commercial video project. For example, advertisements, business trailers, or documentaries, because those are the type of people or companies that are able to shell out $180 or $300 for a 5 to 10 second clip. And a little note here on the side, it's usually good to have some sort of subject. So just flying over a beautiful landscape scenery usually doesn't really cut it. So ideally you have like a boat or a car or even a river or something that is actually the subject of the clip that usually really helps in terms of seeing actual sales from that clip. Now, in terms of editing workflow, obviously you need to come up with your own. Now, my personal workflow, I use this wonderful Loupedeck CT here. It's a little bit overkill, but it works really well with Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve. And basically the idea is that I can throw all my clips, 50, 100 clips, doesn't matter, into DaVinci Resolve, play them back to back, and then the idea is to just set in points, end points, end of timeline, and repeat until you've gone through all of your clips, and then you end up with a bunch of 5 to 20 second long clips in your timeline. And DaVinci Resolve is perfect for it because then you can simply export all the clips as individual files that you can then either take into Final Cut Pro for some grading, or you grade them directly in DaVinci Resolve, whatever your preference is. By the way, if you're interested in the Loupedeck, I'll put a link down below in the description. All right, speaking of grading your footage, you do want to grade your footage, but you don't want to go super crazy and make it super poppy or super contrasty. So ideally you grade it after the Rec. 709 standards. If you don't know what Rec. 709 means, it's basically an internationally recognized standard of how high definition content should look like. So basically you want your colors to pop a little bit, but not too much. And you don't want to bake in a certain style like an orange teal look or so that you see in Hollywood, because if a professional filmmaker wants to purchase your clip, but it has a orange teal look baked in, then it's going to be really hard or impossible to remove that orange teal look and adopt it to whatever the rest of the documentary that they're working on looks like. So ideally you just grade it to Rec. 709, make sure that it pops but not too much, and then you upload those clips so that the professionals can still apply whatever look they want to. And also one more little tip, like before you actually upload your footage, just look at it and ask yourself, like, does this look good? So in terms of platforms, which platform should you actually choose, or should you choose and use all of them? Can definitely not recommend that. I mean, the major ones are obviously iStock Photo, or the video version of that. Then there's Shutterstock, there's Adobe Stock, there's Envato, there's Storyblocks, there's Pond5. So there's plenty. And there's also an aggregator, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But basically, which platform you choose really depends on your preference. For each clip, you need to upload the clip, and then you need to enter the title / description and some keywords or tags or whatever they're called. And then also there's some legal stuff you need to think about. So if you're filming people or branded products or like known public buildings, then you need to get a signed authorization form from the people you filmed or from the owner of the building or someone from the brand who's authorized to sign a release form. Basically, if you film any of those things, you'll need to submit a release form alongside your footage. So you can't just walk around, film strangers, and then submit that content to stock footage platforms. And in terms of the actual uploading process, I guess all of them have pretty much the same procedure. The only thing to keep in mind here is that some of them require you to use an FTP client. That's a program you download on your computer, and then you connect to their server with a username and a password and a port and some IP address, and then you get presented like a folder structure, and then you need to upload your content into a specific folder. So that can be a little bit complicated maybe for some people, and also sometimes frustrating if you upload your footage into the wrong folder, then you wait for an hour, and then you realize that your footage isn't there, and then you have to re-upload it again. So that is something to keep in mind. Other stock platforms these days have just a very convenient web interface where you can just drag and drop your stuff into the browser, and then off you go. So price is obviously an important one, but that's something that's not really in your control. Most of these platforms don't actually let you price your footage yourself. They basically price it for you, and they price it depending on what type of content it is and how high the demand is for that type of content on that particular platform. So an individual clip could sell for $180 on one platform and only for $73 on another platform, and that's entirely outside of your control. So obviously the more platforms you sign up with, the more work you make for yourself, because you'll have to do the same process of uploading the clip, naming it, tagging it over and over and over again. And with certain platforms you might have less tags, so you need to remove some, or some others let you do more tags so you can add more tags. So it actually becomes a very time consuming and cumbersome job to feed all these different platforms. So there is a solution to that, and that's called Blackbox. So they're basically an aggregator that work with Shutterstock, Adobe Stock, Storyblocks, and Vimeo Stock. So they upload it to all these platforms for you. So you only have to upload it once, give a title once, give some tags once, and then they will distribute it to those different platforms, and they just take a small 15% commission off of the net revenue. So let's say a clip sells for $80. It could be that the stock agency actually takes 60% commission, right? So that leaves you with $32 net income. So then Blackbox would actually take 15% off of the $32 that is left over. So they take another $4.80 for themselves, leaving you with like $27.20 that you would actually get paid out in your Blackbox account. And then they would pay you out monthly via PayPal. Okay, so a little bit about my experience. So like if you're doing YouTube like I am, and you're also wanting to sell your footage, I would actually just pick one over the other, because it actually is a lot of work, because I'm going to talk about that in a second, but basically you'll need a lot of content. So you'll need to do this like a lot. Just like a few hundred clips sounds like a lot, but it isn't a lot. If you have other side hustles with your drone, I would really do one over the other and not add this one on top, because it's not really feasible unless you don't have a day job and you can spend all your time making, creating, editing, and uploading content. So the way I started is I tried Pond5, I tried Adobe Stock, and I tried Shutterstock, and then I quickly realized that I don't want to spend my time just updating and uploading to all these different platforms and then copying, pasting the metadata and the tags and all that stuff. So I went to all these platforms and deleted the videos that I had uploaded already, and then signed up with Blackbox. Yes, and I deleted it. It's simply because you can't multi-upload your content. So if I submit my content to Blackbox, I can't submit the same clip to Adobe Stock as well, for example, right? If you do that, then they will find out and you'll get banned. Now, in terms of numbers, so I have done this with more or less limited success, because I also decided for me YouTube is more important. So I've spent less time uploading to those platforms, but I've uploaded a total of 226 clips so far. And I'm seeing a sale every other month. And so far I've made around like $300 on this in total. So not a lot, but it would get me like maybe like a refurbished like Mavic Air, or maybe like even a secondhand Mavic Mini 2. So it is something. So if you want to see any consistent sales on any of these stock video platforms, then I think the general rule of thumb is you want to have at least 500 uploads to see consistent sales every single month. And then also make sure that you really have high quality content. So in terms of technical specs, as we talked about earlier, you want to make sure that it's 4K, but you also want to make sure that it's reasonable content, right? So just shooting beautiful scenery really doesn't cut it so much. I will play back the videos that sell the best for me in just a second, just back to back, so you can get some sort of understanding of like what really sells. But I think one thing that all of these videos have in common is that they have a subject. So it's either a boat, or it's a car, or it's very artistic, or something like flying really low to the ground, or it's like a river, or it's at least there's some sort of subject that somebody was trying to fill out a gap in their video with. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. I'll play back my videos that work or sell really well for me, so then you can get some sort of understanding of like what is good content to create for this type of platform. And then also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, you know what to do. If you need more inspiration on how to make money with your drone on the side, I made a video about 10 ideas of how you can monetize and start a little side hustle with your drone. So go and check that out, and I will see you next week.